All right, looks like we're getting started. So welcome everybody. We're letting everybody file in here for the event that we're going to start it in just a few minutes. Looks like we're going to have a good crowd here for a great conversation with a few small business owners and a local small business attorney to talk about the way companies are pivoting and positioning themselves for this COVID-19 or post-COVID-19 era. So again, we're going to start here in just a few minutes as people are logging in, getting ready, getting set up, and should be good to go here momentarily. All right. Looks like everybody's filing in, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to Charlotte Inno's virtual event. Today, we're going to be talking about the impact of COVID-19 and what it's doing to local startups, small businesses, and how some of these companies are adapting to face these challenges head on and look into the future. If anybody on here is, maybe you saw the event, but you've never heard of Charlotte Inno, or you're unfamiliar with American Inno, I just want to tell you a little bit more about what we do. We're actually a hub for content and resources covering all things tech, innovation, and entrepreneurship in 14 and soon to be 15 different markets. So Charlotte's going to be one of those markets. And we cover and connect founders and innovators in these communities through daily stories and events just like this one, as well as our twice-a-week newsletter called The Beat. You can dive into all of our Charlotte Inno coverage at charlotteinno.com and see what we're about. Check out some of the resources that we have there and sign up for our newsletter, The Beat, to get your local tech and startup stories that you need, as well as any resources and job openings, opportunities, upcoming events, things like that, just like this one. So with that, I'm going to kind of quickly go into our agenda for today. First up, we're going to have a little fireside chat with local small business attorney Liz Venom, and we're going to talk about some of the challenges that she's seeing from business owners that she works with. And then after that, we'll do a little roundtable with some local founders to see how each one of them has adapted their business to this new reality that we're all living in. You can actually see all of the profiles of our founders over here on the right-hand side of your dashboard. You're going to see a little box there called handouts. And one of those is called Event Handout. So you can see some profiles there, and we'll get into their introductions here momentarily. And then we'll close out with a little Q&A. We'll bring Liz back and talk to our founders, talk to the roundtable speakers, and answer some of your questions. So if you've got any questions at any point in time, during the fireside chat or during the panel, go ahead and enter them into the chat box. So you'll see the chat box over there on the right near where the handouts are. And we will get to them when we get to the chat box should be called questions. It actually says questions right on it. So go ahead and enter it in there, and we will get to those when we can in the Q&A portion. You'll also notice there on the handouts, there's a little guide, a resource guide for startups and small businesses that Vennum Law put together. So a big thank you to Vennum Law for powering this event, for putting that guide together. A lot of great resources there for startups and small businesses. Great. All right, so let's kick things off. And first, welcome our guest, Liz Venom, small business attorney and small business owner yourself, right? Well, welcome, Liz. Just want to make sure that you've got your microphone on. Sorry, I think we got you muted. And unfortunately, still not able to hear Liz. And we were just talking a minute before we opened up the event, so we know that the microphone does work. There we go, Liz. I think I hear you now.
It's working now? Okay.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. No worries, no worries. It happens to all of us. How are you doing?
My life these days. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, infinite Zoom
Yes.
meetings. Doing all right, thanks.
Great, great, great. Well, I wanted to start off with a little bit of your background. Are you originally from Charlotte, or did you come here like so many of us?
No, I'm not a native Charlottean. I have one who works for me though. I found one, but so I moved here after law school, and I never really planned on being a business owner. I just planned on being a lawyer, but I
Uh-huh.
started at a small firm, and lawyers at small firms end up doing most small business owners, doing everything, working with clients on all different levels. And so when I left there, I still didn't think I wanted to run a business, but I had a bunch of clients who wanted to work with me still. And I was looking around to go work for another firm. And eventually I just decided, well, let me just start my own. And I didn't think it would be a long-term thing. I figured I would eventually just join another firm, but I actually really liked working for myself. So it's gone really well. I have 5 employees now, 2 other attorneys and a paralegal. And we work exclusively with small businesses and startups, doing everything from setting up LLCs to when people hire, we do employment work too.
Awesome. And you mentioned that you enjoy the working for yourself, enjoy that. And I think a lot of the entrepreneurs on the webinar would probably relate to that. What do you like so much about running your own firm?
Well, we don't open until noon on Monday because Mondays
Uh-huh.
suck. Um, and I like being able to do that. I like being able to just set the tone. This is how we are. This is how our company treats our clients. This is how we talk about our clients and to our clients. And I don't know, I just like being able to make my own rules, which is, I guess,
Yeah.
unusual for a lawyer, but.
No, that's great. I think that's not unusual for an entrepreneur, right? We like to make our own rules, and that's definitely something that people will relate to. Well, great. So, what does your firm specialize? You mentioned small businesses and startups. Any industries, or is it any small business?
Any businesses, but we do have, we have a lot of medical practices and mental health practices. Um, and but we do have clients from all over, entertainment, just tech startups. Did you lose me? Can you hear me? No, I can't hear you.
All right, I'm going to try a different microphone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't know why it cut out.
Okay, that was weird. All right, so you were telling me how
Super glad
what you
you
guys
practiced this and it went great in rehearsal. So, with our clients right now, we are everybody's got new challenges. Some of them are the same. Um, the biggest question that people are facing now is what the heck is going on with small business loans? How do we get
Yeah.
them? How do we get them forgiven? That information is changing, but it's cool for me as a lawyer to be at the front of changing laws. Usually when you're a lawyer, all the stuff you do is old laws that were made a long time ago, but now it's sort of like, okay, well, what new regulations are coming out today? Okay, let's call our clients and let them know, okay, this is different than what we thought. But also everybody has to switch to virtual work now. So my clients in mental health practices have to do telework, so they have to, or telemedicine. So making sure that we're HIPAA compliant, updating all that, that's been a big issue. Also dealing with the economic side. So a lot of people can't pay their leases, can't pay their mortgages now. And the government has provided that residential mortgages, you aren't going to get evicted, but there's not a similar protection for commercial mortgages and leases. So my clients who have a business lease, what do you do if you can't pay it?
Yeah, I would imagine that on the lease side, are you dealing a lot of that? Are you reviewing leases to kind of see what options there are, or how are you helping clients that have those types of issues?
Well, it's not a one size fits all. It depends completely on the language of the lease. And some have a force majeure clause that says if there's circumstances outside your control that make it so you can't pay your lease, then you get a reprieve. but it also depends on how that's worded. If it says circumstances like terrorism, then you don't have to pay your lease. This wouldn't apply. But sometimes the contract will say government regulations. So.
Yeah, so what are some other issues? You mentioned telework. Obviously, a lot of companies, right, trying to figure out how to get their employees, doing some of the work they were doing before, but doing it remotely. So what are you running into there? What are you seeing from your clients?
Yeah, well, do I have to buy my employee a laptop? If I do, how do I pay for that? Is that tax deductible? Making sure businesses are still following good security practices with remote employees, making sure that remote employees are accounted for as far as wage and hour. Labor laws still apply, but it's a lot harder now. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a lot of dealing with questions as they come. One thing I like about being a small firm is we text our clients. So we have clients texting us like, hey, I don't know whether to, I have to let my employees know by the end of the day if I'm laying them off or not. How do I do this? So a lot of it's on the fly lately.
Yeah, I haven't heard too many lawyers who text their clients. So that's great. Yeah, if somebody's got a quick question, they just shoot it your way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, I suppose, but
I could see that going both ways. Well, what about with some of the new laws? Obviously, do you have clients dealing with PPP, trying to figure out, how much of that's going to be forgiven?
yeah, for sure. And that's a huge question still. A lot of answers have come out, but also in addition to the loans, the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act makes small businesses have to comply with employment laws we never had to before.
Yeah.
So we have to do paid leave for employees. Any business with 50 employees or less, well, that's, a lot of small businesses fall in that category. So figuring out how to handle that, how to talk to your employees about it, how to make sure that you get tax credits for it, what documentation. It's learning as we go because these laws are new, but it's good to be able to figure those out and help people navigate that.
Are you seeing certain industries or types of clients affected more than others? Maybe particular industries that are just have more challenges right now?
Yeah, my kid just unplugged her headphones from the iPad. So can you hear that?
Just barely. It's all right.
Okay, so that affects everybody. But
yeah.
I guess event planning, people whose industries aren't quote unquote essential, now they have to cancel contracts, negotiate if they can't return money for deposits. That's been a huge issue. Anybody who's not essential, now they're figuring out what to do without being able to open their doors.
Right. Well, what advice do you have? I mean, I'm sure you've got founders right now who are listening, who or are watching, that might be in some of those industries. They might be dealing with remote work. They might be dealing with some of these similar issues. What advice would you have for them?
Not to make decisions without a lawyer. There's a lot of decisions people are making now, and it's tricky, and it can be scary. You don't have to hire us. You can hire any lawyer, but I think getting good advice before you start, before you have to make big decisions, so that later on, there aren't problems down the road. My firm we're really proud to be able to offer free consultations for limited scope for business owners affected by COVID-19, just because I feel like it's everybody's job to help everybody right now. And to the extent that we can help with some of that, to get an idea of the legal landscape before you make decisions, I think that's really important.
Yeah, awesome. No, it's great for you guys to do that. And there are some additional resources that I think you guys put together on that handout, right?
Yep. So that should be, also with any resources nowadays with the COVID-19, they're going to be out of date the next time the laws change. But for now, they're good.
Absolutely. Yeah, we put together guides and resources that we put on the website, and a week later they're out of date, right? For that same reason, things are changing very quickly. So, but thanks for putting that together, and certainly thanks for the resource that you are for so many small businesses and startups. So, thanks, Liz. And with that, we're going to bring Liz back for the Q&A bit. So keep sending any questions that you might have for her. But for now, we're going to switch over to our founder roundtable. So I think we're going to start switching out some videos there. And with us today, we've got Dr. Sharon Jones, who is the founder and CEO of the Dottie Rose Foundation. And then fresh off his win at the Pitcher Pivot Challenge, Brian Helfrich, with the CEO of probably Davidson's most popular coffee shop, Summit Coffee. Yeah, welcome, Brian. And then also up, we've got another Pitcher Pivot finalist and creator of the Framework Agency. Really great story that we're going to hear about there, David Hunt. So welcome to all three of you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'd like to start by first going around and having you each tell us a little bit about your business. You know, and when we do this, we're going to frame it in a sort of pre-COVID, right? What was your business originally a few months ago? And we'll start there, and we'll kind of talk about pivots and how you guys have adapted. So let's start with you, Sharon. Tell us a little bit more about Dottie Rose Foundation.
Sure. Thank you so much for having us, and hello to everyone that's on the call. Yes, the Dottie Rose Foundation serves to connect the dots between the real world applications and computer science. And our focus has primarily been on the female persona in the middle school, focusing on middle school girls so that we provide them a safe place to see the connection between what is happening in the real world, computer science, and finding their spot in technology. So we have spent the past several years growing our nonprofit. We are a nonprofit, so we are here to serve and support the community. And most of our girls have been here from the Charlotte regional area. And although that's changed a little bit, so we'll get that when we talk about the pivot piece, right? But we have primarily focused on in-person camps and workshops to serve the girls, and have partnered with many community members to bring our tech community into our work so that the girls can see what they're learning in class is actually applicable once they leave our doors.
Yeah, no, that is great work. Thank you, Sharon. Brian, tell us a little bit about Summit Coffee.
Sure. Summit Coffee is a national coffee and lifestyle brand. We've been around for 20 years, and for the most part, we were just a cafe in Davidson, but now we have a few cafes around North Carolina, and we also have a growing roasting and importing coffee wholesale and distribution business. So we sell our coffee to cafes and restaurants, and direct to consumer. We're in about 25 states right now, and grocery and stuff like that. So, but this, the core of our business is retail store and retail expansion. We are opening franchise stores this year too. So, and we've got our hands in a lot of different ways, but it's all rooted back in sort of in coffee.
That's 25 states, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I did not know that. That's awesome. David.
Yeah, so hi everyone, and Juan, thank you for this. I'm the founder of a company called Framework, and we're an automated consulting agency for small businesses. So you think about it, instead of a small business going out and hiring a Deloitte or EY, they can subscribe to our technology and ask them questions. And as clients respond to those questions, the technology gets smarter, asking them more and more targeted questions, getting a feel for their business, and then providing automated recommendations to guide them through different processes.
Awesome. Yeah, that's I know we've had a chance to hear your pitch at Pitch Breakfast. That was maybe a month before sort of COVID and all of that started. It was a little bit before that.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting to see how things have evolved since then. So I'll ask this to all three of you, just whoever wants to kind of hit me with first. When did all of this first become real? You know, obviously we started hearing a little bit about the pandemic here and there, but when did it become real to you and your business?
I can answer that first, because I can tell you very specifically, it was the day that the governor closed the schools. So that was a Saturday, and we knew that there would be something that would be coming and that we would have to change the way we were doing business. But the closure of the schools was a big moment. We had already moved and done, actually that morning, so that was on Saturday, so that morning we had already done one of our workshops we had been doing in person. We'd already moved that and done that online that morning. But immediately that afternoon, I was like, oh boy, okay, what are we gonna do? We have to think about this right now. Schools are going to be a mess for a little bit. So how are we going to work with this?
I think for a lot of parents, that's when it became real, right? It's right when the schools closed.
Yeah, it was like, oh man.
At Summit, we're on the precipice as a retail store in the service industry of figuring out whether we were going to be essential. And again, similar to Sharon, we sort of started knowing something was going to happen even before the schools closed and before the stay-at-home order was in place. And so we were monitoring how other states and other governments were handling coffee businesses, and had started preparing for when this hits, not if this hits. What are we going to do to adapt? Are we going to be allowed to stay open? Are we going to be allowed to have people in our stores? And so it was a Monday, I believe it was March 16th, when we first really spent the day focused on what are we going to do to prepare for this. And so that was when we shifted our business from, let's sell franchises and figure out how we're going on our trips to Peru in April to, okay, how do we serve people safely next week?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as somebody pointed out here on the chat, coffee is pretty essential.
It is.
So David, you've got sort of a different situation where Sharon and Brian, they've got a physical location, or they're doing live ones. When did it become real to you?
So for us, we were a little bit of a laggard. And so my dad, he's an architect and he runs a practice, and that got deemed as essential business because they were doing a lot of construction. So I tend to go into their office and help them out with a few things. But I'll have my dashboard of our signups right up next to the monitor with what I'm helping them with. And throughout the week, there was just this market drop off and decline. I'm seeing our signups are dropping down. I'm seeing the engagement of our beta clients are really just ticking down as well. So we just did a little ping out to a lot of our clients and just got a pulse check and said, hey, what are you struggling with right now? What's the focus? And the focus is shifted from wanting to grow and their business wanting to grow and thrive to just wanting to survive. The impact that hit them, and then by hitting them, then it transferred to us. So that was the moment where we realized, okay, all right, if client engagement is ticking off, we need to understand, what other market access points are there, and then how do we prepare our business for this in the future?
So what was the first challenge that you had to overcome? Now, obviously, this was impacting your clients, but as a challenge to you, what did that mean? What was the first thing that you said, we're going to have to change something here?
So for me personally, it just ratcheted up. We had already had this back pocket plan where we wanted to do something called recession mode, but we had never fully developed it out. It was for whenever there was an economic contraction, we would just say, hey, clients, you can toggle this on. It shows you how to save capital in intense times. We had never built the content or the recommendations around that. So now your 8 or 9 hour days turn into 10 to 12 hour days. And the biggest challenge for me personally was kind of like she said earlier, we're taking Mondays until 12 o'clock. We used to take Mondays off, where that was our day to go to float tanks or meditate as a team. And then it was just nah, we're not doing that anymore. We have stuff that we actually have to build out and understand how this infrastructure scales out in a new market.
I got to say, that's very forward thinking of you to already have a recession mode planned and all of that. So
it's inevitable, man. I mean, 08 scared a lot of people, right? And same thing in 01, and you have to plan for that.
Yeah, wow. So what other challenges, Sharon, Brian, did you guys run into when things started to really roll in? Obviously, Sharon, you've got, you do live camps. So what were some of the other challenges that you ran into?
Well, much to what David said, when this began to hit, I knew immediately we had to think about what were we going to do in order to still serve our girls, because at that point we already had a semester-long project that we had in place with Century One, and I knew we wanted to complete that project. And I was like, what are we going to, and I am an educator by trade, and so I knew that we could pop online, but how we were going to do it and how we were going to make sure we facilitated it where the young ladies felt like they were still getting the experience that we had prior to all this going was going to be an issue. So my brain started immediately thinking about, okay, this is going to probably be here for the long haul. We're going to be in this for a while. I mean, in particular, when a school's shut down, that's a pretty big sign that we're not, and likely already knew we weren't going to be going back. So immediately my team and I began to think about, okay, what do we know? What can we do well? And there were a couple things we had in our back pocket of some courses and classes that we knew we wanted to offer. And so we thought, all right, this is the time to try it. So I felt like it was a great opportunity for us to fail forward, because we definitely failed some. I'm not saying that what we tried, and I'm sure that David and Brian can echo this, that we tried a couple of things and they didn't work. You know, I mean, it was like, oh man, that did not happen well, right? So he's like, all right, well, we're just gonna hop online and we're gonna see how this goes. And so from there, we've really, each week we assessed, got feedback, you know, tried something, we failed a little bit, we got a little bit better. And eventually we knew, okay, this online thing is going to work. We just got to make sure there's certain pieces that we need to make sure we have in place to make sure each child feels like they're getting that one-to-one contact.
Do you mind if we ask one of the things that you tried that didn't work?
Oh, there's so many. All right, well, the big piece was we did a gamers series and we tried a couple of different platforms. And one of the platforms, we ended up not having a very great, the kids did not, it was a little too clunky, right?
Yeah.
So we went back to one, and our platform of choice at this moment is Zoom, because it's really easy for the kids to access. And then I'm able to move them into breakout rooms, which allows me to have a much better experience with the children. And in addition, the other thing was I did a lot of it with some live interaction and did not provide enough offline content. Gotcha, and I've done that in the past when you're live in the classroom, but when you're doing stuff on the fly, sometimes you don't think about that piece. So providing that hard copy of content is really important.
And I think for a lot of us, small businesses, entrepreneurs, organizations, there is going to be that trial and error. Getting the tech right? What's the tech stack for virtualization is going to be important. I mean, even us with this event, this is our first Charlotte Inno virtual event, and we're trying different tech and trying different things. So that's definitely a part of that journey. Now, Brian, your situation's a little bit different because the governor made the choice for you to have a mandate there that impacted restaurants. So you had a big challenge right off the bat. How did you adapt to that?
Yeah, well, we're fortunate. We've grown enough in the last few years that we have a pretty deep team. So we're a 50 to 60 person company, and so we right away shifted phase. Right at the start, I have a business partner. We have a chief strategy officer who basically implements and helps develop strategies and oversight for a lot of the ideas. So we structured it so that I was going to figure out how to keep our employees at work and keep customers coming safely and figure out whatever that looked like. And he was going to figure out, give me the budget for how much money do we need to make in order to keep these jobs, in order to keep our doors open. And so one of the ideas that I came up with was to take a vacant bank drive-through and turn it into a Summit to-go unit. And it's about a quarter mile from my house, and I walk by it 4 times a day and had never really thought much about it. I'm in a pipe dream that this would be a great summit, but was running by it in the morning and just decided to call the number on the white sign, and one thing led to another, and we were in a second location where people don't need to leave their cars. It's contactless payment. And so we immediately offered an additional service, and our thinking was, in this time of everything shutting down, if we can open something new, people are going to want to come to us. They're going to want to flock to us. They want to support something, a good news story. And so it was a really exciting thing. And then, we're a diversified business. As I mentioned, we have our roasting business, and the core of that is serving coffee to other cafes, and that dried up overnight. So we've got our retail problem and we've got our wholesale problem. And so we launched an aggressive e-commerce campaign to basically replace all revenue with direct to consumer sales is a side of our business we had never focused on before and had to figure out how to do it overnight. But thankfully we have the people to be like, okay, here's the plan here, you guys implement it. And and so far so good.
How's the e-commerce side been going for you guys?
It's amazing. Candidly, I'll share numbers with you guys. We were doing about $2,000 a month in online coffee sales, and then we've done in April we did about $32,000. So we just it was obviously a 1,600% spike, and it was also really gave us some insight into, wow, if we finally put some energy into e-commerce direct to consumer, we have a lot of potential here too.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that from a lot of other businesses too, right? It's they're forced to do things that they're like, why didn't we do this before?
Right. And the drive-through concept, and I mentioned we're franchising, and we've also talked about drive-throughs, and obviously, we love the idea of a local coffee shop and what it can do for its community, and we're not going to go away from that. But every Starbucks you go by, there's 15 cars in line at the drive-through, and it gets you thinking like, okay, how do we also capitalize on this? And so, we threw it out there, and obviously, it was a success and it was popular, and so now we're trying to figure out how to work that into our growth model going forward.
Yeah, and how fortunate that you happen to have a old bank building that
Right.
wasn't being used right down the street.
Correct.
Sharon,
with a developer who is easy to get a hold of.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to add to that too. The thing that Brian mentioned about building the e-commerce site, we as a team at Dottie Rose had conversations about creating online content and providing opportunities for kids to be able to access what we do that is not necessarily in person. And this time really forced us to stop and think, okay, so now we need to do this. I mean, and not that we haven't been able to, it was just sitting down and doing it. And I think before, sometimes, especially when you're a small business owner, I haven't been in business as long as you have, Brian, but when you're in the mode, you're doing the do, and you're doing the things to keep the business moving and running. Mm-hmm. And as much as you want to do X, Y, or Z, it doesn't always happen. So having this time to, and as crazy as it's been, to be like, okay, like this, because the truth of it is, as we move forward and we begin to reopen, and there is going to be a very large role for digital content creation and interactivity. Period. I mean, that's not going to change. I mean, it's been a big part of our lives before, but it's going to be increasingly a part of how we interact, how education is provided, how we serve in terms of e-commerce or whatnot. So it's not something, it's going to still be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of the great.
Now is not going to be a bad thing.
Right, and it's one of the great simplified pieces of advice that you mentioned earlier. It's like work on your business instead of in your business, which someone tells you that when you're working in your business, and you're like, how do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
But that's right. I've been at home now for 70 days, and it's like I have no choice but to work on the business to try to be effective. I'm sitting in my bedroom every day, and it's actually like, in terms of things about like thinking for the future, it's like, wow, getting away from the operations and forcing yourself to be creative is a really good opportunity.
Yeah. No, that's great, guys. Now, David, you've got an interesting sort of pivot story yourself, right? Tell us a little bit more about how you had to change and adapt framework to kind of the modern era.
Yeah, so our change was, we shifted into saying, all right, we've been looking and working with entrepreneurs. Are there any adjacent markets that we can use our existing infrastructure for? Because for us, it was very much like, this is going to pass, and we understand that any pivot, is probably going to be temporary. Now, temporary may mean 6 months, temporary may mean a year or whatever. But we realized the larger market is still with our entrepreneurial clients. But how we approached it was saying, all right, we've got this existing infrastructure, which is really based off of a database of questions, because obviously the greatest consultants in the world, they ask the best questions, right? And then they're sitting down with their clients, and as the clients respond to those questions, they come up with recommendations. So we're like, we got this database of questions, it gets funneled through our software, and then we provide content. And we just started saying, all right, well, what other markets are there where we can do that, or where we can apply that? And standardized testing was a prime one for us. I mean, there are millions of students who are stuck at home, and they still have to study for their SATs, their PSATs, and things of that nature. But you have to realize, I don't know if anyone's ever read this book called Thinking Fast and Slow, but it talks about all of our inherent biases and heuristics. But I thought that was the most obvious market, but that's only because, or standardized testing was the most obvious market. That's only because I've worked in that field before. So maybe there are other markets out there that there could have been a pivot to. But from my experiences, I'm looking through that lens, like those rose-colored glasses. And we said, all right, well, we can probably have some students that we've engaged with in past businesses come up on this platform, link a database of questions in that are like sample SAT questions, sample PSAT questions. And whenever there's something that's incorrect, you can enable these students to come on and say, hey, look, here's why you got this question wrong, or here's why you got this right. And we already had a pretty sexy interface anyway, in terms of, one of the first questions we had.
Helps.
Right. One of the first questions that we ask a client is, where would you like to work for the day? And they can choose from like beaches, and they can choose from like coffee shops, and it's a live view of that. So it pulls them into that environment. So now it was just about switching out that database as well and saying, hey, where would you like to study today? So now it becomes, the lawn at a particular school or university that you wanted to study at, or study hall. And now students can interface in that capacity. But for us, it really came down again just to those two things, which was existing infrastructure, changing it in a lightweight way, to what are the adjacent markets.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love hearing the story of that shift, right, from that small business consulting to education. How's it going? What kind of results are you seeing?
Yeah, so last week, I think when we had talked, we probably had about 3 students who wanted to sign up as mentors or tutors. We've got a pipeline now of 200 students who want to sign up for the actual product, but we're still working on our admin dashboard in order to actually roll that out, right? So we've got the front end worked out where, clients can come in and interact, but we still need to integrate the database where a student can come in and say, hey, look, here's why you got this question wrong. And we don't have that admin portal out yet, but we've gotten some solid traction.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And if anybody has any questions for the 3 panelists or for Liz, please send them your way. I do have one question that came up here from Bilal, and that is sexy interface a technical term? And the answer is yes, it absolutely is a technical term.
Sharon, 100%.
Sharon, you've got made some other changes to Dottie Rose. That my son is one who learned very well. What else did you do to change what you guys are doing?
Privilege of working with Mr. Mark, who is, by the way, is a gaming wizard. Just so you guys know. So what we ended up doing is, as I mentioned before COVID, well, and let me say this too, it's not, before COVID, our mission was to focus on the female population. And the core of the reason behind that is I am a female in tech, and the majority of my career has been spent as usually one of the few females in the room when it comes to working with technology and data. In particular, David, I'm going to nerd out completely whenever we have a chance to talk about your database and all that's happening, because that just is amazing and all the things I love. And so when I was teaching and working in tech, I would find that there weren't a lot of females that were filtering into the work, into my classes, and into the businesses that I was helping. And so that was the focus why we focused on females, but we've never discriminated against anybody being a part of our programs. But part of this time in which we needed to pivot, when the schools closed, and I knew that it was going to be a tough road ahead, because as a former educator and still educating, that switch from being in person to doing online was going to take our school system some time. And I knew we needed to provide a safe place for kids to be able to come and learn and try and also create with the technology and not just use it. So we opened up our doors to boys and girls, and that has been really fun to watch how the kids have interacted on using the online platforms and how they've grown talking to each other. So that's been a really great avenue. So yes, our programs are open to boys and girls, and we are going to continue our online programming as we move into the summer. We are having summer camps. That is our big core of the business, is summer camps, and we are continuing with our summer camps. We are doing online, and we're also going to be doing some blended models based off of the CDC guidelines and how we're going to be able to interact with some of the children in person. I feel like we need a little bit of in-person connection. And so we just have received lots of information even today, and we're just continually moving that around to make it fit. But we are going to be having our summer camps and working with our kiddos this summer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, I want to ask the 3 of you about the future, right? What do you think the future is going to hold? You guys have made some changes, and a few of you have hinted at some of these changes maybe being a little bit more permanent. What does the future hold for each of your companies?
So for us, to echo, I do think this is temporary. And one of the reasons, like, the entrepreneurial market is, I think, our prime target and our prime focus. With the pivot, we saw it as a lightweight opportunity to generate some revenue to kind of get through this hurdle. And when you compete in that standardized testing market, you're competing in a red ocean. It's highly commoditized. The product differentiation is low, and then you start fighting for dollars. And then at that point, it's Walmart versus the mom and pop that they come in and destabilize, right? So how we'll move forward over the next few months is continuing with business as usual, but also continuing with this pivot, and also trying to make sure that we don't get too divided in our foci. But I think the larger opportunity in the long term one is definitely with entrepreneurs. But for as the moment speaks, it is, you know, the standardized testing that we can move into and have some historical experience with.
Yeah, awesome.
For us at Summit, I think we did well here because we continue to focus on our core principle, which is like see customers where they are and what they want. And, you know, for years it's been getting as many people into small spaces and making these great community events and bringing people together. And that quickly shifted to where people don't really want to be near each other. They still want to drink coffee. And so our mission is going to be, how do you bring coffee and bring our service and the things that people like about Summit to the customers in different ways? So it's e-commerce, it's drive-throughs. We're developing a mobile app, and with our franchise stores, we're actually building out. We haven't announced it yet, but we're building out a new store, another new store right now, and so we're constantly evaluating. Okay, how can we serve the customer? Because coffee is essential. Coffee is somewhat recession-proof. The cafe is not necessarily recession proof, but we're doing our part to make sure that people are getting our coffee in their hands one way or the other.
Yeah, awesome. And Sharon, other than summer camps, anything else lie ahead for you?
Yeah, we're going to be continuing at the core of our business still is that face-to-face interaction. I mean, that's never going to go away and nothing ever replaces that. So we will continue to do that. But as we have seen, and I mentioned before that the digital part is going to be a big part of any of our businesses as we move forward. So we are going to continue to build out our online presence and the platform. And the wonderful part about that is that we are able to serve more girls outside of our community and boys. So we have that opportunity. So we will continue to focus on doing face-to-face as much as we can, and then adding in that online component where we're able to serve and continue to move forward and grow as a nonprofit.
Awesome, awesome. Now we're going to get some Q&A. We're going to bring Liz back here in just a second, but I've got one more question for you. The technology wizards in Charlotte got together and built a time machine, and we can send a message back to the beginning of this year. What message would you send back to yourself so that your companies would be better prepared to handle everything that has gone on? So what would you tell yourself 5 months ago?
I think I would have told myself to get a haircut. Ever since this, I'm used to having my house by myself, and I invited our CFO to come in and other people to live, and just got to build this. And they always call me Frederick Douglass because of this thing I have on my head now. No, I definitely would have. I would have spent more effort on an admin portal. Definitely would have told myself to spend more on an admin portal where people could come in from both vantage points.
Yeah, awesome.
I think that I would have told myself to remember to make decisions for a very long future. That, you know, there was such urgency that was created by this global pandemic, and rightfully so. But for a business that's been around for 20 years and plans to be around for a lot longer than that, to not force yourself into any decisions that you're going to regret 6 months from now.
Great, great. Sharon?
That's a good one. That's a good one, Brian. I like that about making the decisions. The other piece is I would tell myself, get it out of your head, Sharon, and get it on a piece of paper. I have ideas and I have content that swirls around in my head on a regular basis, and I'm terrible about sitting down and writing it out. So I get it out and get it ready to be able so that it can be used and taught.
I don't know that GoToWebinar has a hand raise function, but if it did, and I asked everybody on here how many other people suffer from the same malady, I guarantee you the majority would be raising their hands. We all have millions of ideas. We don't always write it down. So that is great advice for you all and for everyone on the call for the next pandemic. So we're going to go ahead and bring Liz back and start with some of the Q&A, dig into some of the questions here that people in the audience have been asking for you guys. We'll see if her video pops up there. There you are. Hi, Liz.
Hey.
Welcome back. So we're going to do a little Q&A. Did you get a chance to hear the stories? Hi.
I did, yeah.
from all of the founders today. And actually that's bringing you back kind of brings another sort of question maybe for everybody is, did you feel protected? I mean, obviously a lot of what Liz is doing with her clients is making sure that everybody is protected and they're thinking through whether it's through their lease agreement or whether it's through, employee agreements or anything like that. Anything that you guys would do or would advise others to just feel a little bit more protected?
Protected financially?
Yeah, or as a business.
I think for us, there were a few additional protections we had to consider, right? So when you're engaging with students, you want to make sure that whatever agreements or privacy policies or data sharing agreements, you want to make sure that content, right? So that we can repurpose it and reuse it. But two, you want to make sure that people are protected, because some of these students that come in, you got to make sure that they're 18 or older if they've taken these tests, because you don't want people who are minors, so on and so forth. So I think in that aspect of protection legally, there are definitely things that we had to consider.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. You're dealing with minors now. You've got some legal considerations.
Yeah, it's for us. It was. I would recommend. It's a bit oxymoronic, but when you're trying to make fast decisions, the adage of measure twice, cut once, and I think that it really applied in this scenario. And anytime you're trying to implement something fast, there's an inclination to like just press go, and you could really do something that could set your company back, could send the wrong message. And so, yeah, I'd recommend whatever it looks like to your business, I would measure twice and cut once.
Great. So we've got a question here on PPP. Have any of you guys had to deal with that? I know, Liz, that you're dealing with that with some of your clients. Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about what that's been like? Any concerns about the program going forward?
We again are thankful that my chief strategy officer, at the start of March, just basically pushed him on to COVID related stuff. And so he's attended like 1,007 webinars on how to deal with PPP. But we successfully got PPP loans for all three of our LLCs that we have, and so we're now figuring out how to make sure that we properly pay it back. But I think they're trying to make it clearer, but I do think for small businesses there's a big concern, especially over those who laid some employees off and are collecting unemployment. And in North Carolina, unemployed workers can earn up to now $950 something a week, which is a lot more than some of them were making when they were in the service industry, especially. And so, but our PPP loan forgiveness is based on employing a certain number of people and paying a certain amount of payroll. So it is a really complicated thing that we are fortunate to have someone who's like really studied up on it. But I would imagine whether it's working with somebody like Liz, is finding somebody who can really walk you through this, because I worry there are going to be a lot of businesses that are saddled with $100,000 in debt after this because they didn't walk through all the hoops to figure out exactly how to do this correctly.
I'm actually hearing from a lot of founders with those same concerns, right? You've got this money, it's a great help, but you may be saddled with it for a while after. Liz, do you have any thoughts on that? Companies that are dealing with PPP, any big mistakes that you see some of them making?
Well, first of all, I can empathize, because when I got mine, I was afraid to spend it for the first few days, just figuring out, okay, what's going on? How do I document this? Do I need a separate bank account? Because I mean, lawyers don't get a cheat sheet. Like we have to figure things out too. But I mean, just personally for my company, it's been a struggle figuring out. I had somebody go on maternity leave. Okay, do I need to document this? I didn't fire her. She's gone. Most of the questions have been answered by now with the forgiveness form just came out, but not all yet.
Yeah, lawyers don't get a cheat sheet. That's I guess you don't. Yeah, you have to figure it out.
Yeah, Brian, actually to echo a sentiment earlier, and not trying to go into any like partisanship here, but this was one of the cases where I think it happened so fast, where the government measured once and cut once. It was a little difficult to measure twice at that point, because society needed and the economy needed it. But we didn't. Our focus was on clients and supporting them when they needed to apply for it, as opposed to us particularly. But to your point, I think there's still some looming headaches around what happens, a year down the road with that money.
Totally.
So we got another question here from the audience. How are you all keeping your teams connected and motivated during this time? There's only so much team building you can do via Zoom calls.
Well, they stay with me now, calling me Frederick Douglass. So
anything else? Anything you guys are doing that you see is working to keep your team motivated during this time?
We have a lot of communication. We do Zoom calls, but we actually had a meeting 6 feet apart outside to say hello to everybody, and that was really helpful just to see each other's faces. I mean, we were apart, but I think and outside, and I think that we're communicating via Zoom. We're doing all of the communication, but that little piece of pick me up of just seeing people face to face, that was just enough hump to get us to the rest of the way.
We have several different branches like a cafe. Sorry, Liz. We have go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say mine's probably less serious than yours, but we've actively implemented a meme sharing where it's mandatory to share your favorite meme every day when we do our call. And it's been great for morale. But
yeah, I was just going to say we did a early on. We had a company movement sort of challenge / thing. It was like, all right, day one, who can do their stay at home movement streak. Everyone's committed to moving, whether it's running or we've had somebody who's dancing in their kitchen. It's like moving 30 minutes a day and like getting our staff to see how many people commit to doing this every day together, no matter where you are. And it's been a cool thing to see everyone sort of supporting each other. And, we're so far apart, but it's been a neat way to bond.
Awesome. And we've got another question here for everybody. How has the COVID-19 situation made you all relook at your vision statements? Has it ever made you rethink why you're doing what you're doing? So little deep question here to close us out.
I mean, I can say that the answer to no. It made me want to do what we're doing more. This is so important this time. We're living history right now, and we are leveraging technology and how we use it in ways we couldn't even have foreseen before. And I think it's a really special moment in time for that, and for us in particular, for my vision and our mission for what Dottie Rose does, for kids to see the why and the how. I mean, this technology is allowing us to connect. I mean, if this had happened even 10 years ago, we would not be in the same position. And so computer science and innovation and technology are so pivotal in how we're going to move forward in the next centuries and more. So no, it's made me want to do what I do more, and how can I continue to serve our young people in a way that's meaningful and provides them a space to learn and grow.
Great. Any other vision statements, reasons why you exist? Any of that have changed from the rest of you?
I mean, I don't know about formal statement, but our focus was always our clients, advocating for our clients, focusing on my team. And then now it kind of feels like we have a bigger responsibility. We're focusing on, working with the small business community as a whole, because with our clients, like, the courts are closed. So a lot of our cases are just, hanging out. So with that extra time, what are we going to do with it? And so that's, we've been trying to build relationships with other businesses.
For us, our vision has always been about economic empowerment. Fundamentally believe that, supporting entrepreneurship, you support an ecosystem, and people who can capitalize their own companies can capitalize the future and build greater communities. I guess it did show us that there's a longer road to that. So if you do pivot in terms of students who get higher educational attainment, then they get higher career opportunities or go off to build businesses, there's a longer road. So I guess it really just showed us how many nuances or more nuances we haven't thought about when it comes to achieving a goal of economic empowerment.
Mm-hmm. For us, I think it confirmed our idea of, we've never sort of had a plan for Summit. We have a vision of who we want to be and what that might look like, but This sort of made us again throw any like little plans we might have had out the door and focus on the 3 things that we always say to ourselves is that we're going to be good to each other, meaning the people who work for Summit. We're going to serve our communities, and we're going to do remarkable things. And and so this was just like, okay, how do we do all 3 of these things in the era of COVID?
Great. So yeah, your visions are either crystallizing, getting bigger, pushing forward. So love it. Love it. I did have a question here that came in. This is maybe specifically for Liz. Challenges with paying a lease for a small business owner who maybe if they have a challenge with paying a lease, any advice on what they should be doing? Obviously, checking out your resources and asking an attorney, but any advice on what to do in a current situation?
I mean, talk to your landlord. Realistically, the courts have been closed, so you can't get evicted. Courts aren't opening back up until June 1. But talk to your landlord and negotiate. I think a lot of times people don't think they have any wiggle room, but you might as well try. But read your lease first so you know what you're doing.
Any other final thoughts there, Liz? Advice on anything that founders should be doing from a legal standpoint? Safeguards they should be taking, anything like that?
Read contracts before you sign them. That's always my advice.
Read contracts before you sign them. That's a good one. Anything else? If anybody has any questions, I think I've answered all of the ones that have come through here. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, this is kind of on tangent, off topic, but sort of similar to that. If you do have student loans, now is probably a good time to pay them because most of your money is going towards the principal as opposed to the interest. So
you're right.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Anything else? Good. All right. Well, I'm going to ask one question. We're going to close out here, top of the hour. If anybody has any other questions, send them our way. Don't forget the handout. Has everybody's contact information there, as well as in the handout section, the Vennum Law COVID guides. So you've got some resources there that Liz is providing. And of course, Liz is always available if you have any legal questions or anything that you want to talk to them, her and her team directly about. So we'll close out with one more question. What is the Netflix or Prime Video or Hulu show that in the tiny fraction of spare time that you guys might have in your working weeks that you are binging on?
I can take that one because I will say that I have not been one. I'm not a huge TV watcher, but the Ozarks.
The Ozarks.
Me too.
I'm telling you, that's a good one. It's a good one. Sucked me in.
All right, so we've got the Ozarks. David, Brian.
I just my wife and I just plowed through the show Dead to Me on Netflix in about 2 days, which it's like so simultaneously unsatisfying and still really satisfying. And my kids are plowing through the original Magic School Bus, which is funny to have that back on TV.
That's awesome. In terms of shows, nothing. I mean, I'll go to sleep to listening to Alan Watts on YouTube, but besides that, maybe a 3 a.m. Hey Arnold session. But
nice little throwback. And Liz, you said Ozark too?
Yeah, that's mine too.
Awesome.
The lawyer
awesome,
there's
guys.
pretty evil, but
Awesome, guys. All right. Well, thank you all so much. I think that about wraps it up here. We're here at the top of the hour again. If you guys have any questions you want to ask for the panelists, their contact information is there in the handouts. Otherwise, check us out at charlotteinno.com. Be sure to sign up for the Beat. Twice a week in your inbox, you'll get the latest stories. Look for a recap of this event and resources and everything that the ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship here in town has to offer. Thank you guys so much, David, Brian, Sharon, for your insights and your pivot stories. And thank you so much, Liz, for your advice, for your insights, and for helping us put all of this together. So thank you guys so much. And we look forward to seeing you hopefully sooner rather than later at a live event, but if not, on virtual events here. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.